Right, welcome back to Turdtowns, the show that brings you the lesser known places in the UK. For good, but usually for bad reasons. And today we're back to those bad reasons as we visit the county of Warwickshire. What a strange county this is. Talk about contrasts. Warwickshire is about as Midlands as you can get, straddling the southern and eastern sides of Birmingham, and it is home to around 630,000 people. The county is a really strange shape, and the difference between south and north is insane. The south is actually quite wealthy, it's nice and it's touristy with towns like Warwick, Leamington Spa and Stratford-upon-Avon. But the north is a completely different story. There is far more poverty and less opportunities in the north. The council leader is also a 19-year-old representing reform, which is just madness. Imagine being in control of $500 million and running a council at that age. I could barely run a bath. But based on the evidence in this video, that young man sure has his hands full of turd. Let's get into it, and don't forget to hit like, share and subscribe to help Turdtowns thrive. Number 6. Burton Green. Warwickshire is a rather nice county, and despite most of the trouble being in the north of the county, it's not accurate to say every town and village is a dump. So here's a place today being included for different sort of reasons. Burton Green is a village with a population of 1,556. There is nothing remarkable about Burton Green. It is just a collection of houses with no real landmarks, and normally you wouldn't bat an eyelid as you pass through it in your car. It's perfectly acceptable, a nice place to live, and in some circles it would even be considered as posh. Except, there is one major problem. Burton Green is the place in England which has been most affected by the building of the HS2. So this is one that has not been included due to the phlegm-spitting, pigeon-kicking, envelope-licking locals. No, it's not their fault. It was decided that the massive new railway line had to pass straight through the middle of their village, cutting the place in half. There was nothing that they could do about it as the line was built on top of a pre-existing old derelict railway. Life has become hellish for the locals since the building work started, with residents fleeing the village in search of a quieter neighbourhood. Work began here in 2021 to build 5 tunnels under the village with an aim for completion of next autumn. Unfortunately, the project has ended up coming in over budget, costing £125 million to build the 800-metre tunnel. The costs have spiralled because they have to build a tunnel for the bats to fly down and be protected. If you ask me, everyone in control is batty. Residents describe living here as horrific now due to the constant banging day in and day out, and even sometimes on weekends. Residents feel completely at the mercy of the builders who seemingly make up their own building schedules. Couple that with the constant roadworks in the village due to the bridge above the tunnel, and it is a recipe for a real turd town. The residents constantly complain about how their lives have been ruined, but it's all okay because the building company have built them a new village hall to say sorry. I appreciate that Burton Green wouldn't normally be a place to feature on this list, but based on feedback from the local residents, I couldn't imagine many worse places to live in Warwickshire right now. Number 5. Rugby. The town of Rugby is possibly the most famous place on today's list with a population of 114,363. It's also the most easterly town in the West Midlands. First of all, it's not a complete write-off. There were lots of historic buildings to see and places to explore. I didn't hate it. But it can't be denied that this place is quickly slipping into the turd bowl, and if Rugby doesn't get some roughage in soon, it's going to be a disaster of epic proportions. Let's address the elephant in the room. Yes, Rugby is the town which was the birthplace of the sport of rugby. The town was not named after the sport, however. Instead, it means wild hilltop in Celtic. Well, wild is right. Rugby School is a posh fee-paying school, and one day, one rebellious pupil decided to pick the football up to stick a middle finger up at the establishment. And the game of ruggers was born. Rugby has continued to be a sport for the slightly posher people to this day. It's considered a gentleman's sport, even though the original sports creator was a rule-breaking Asbo. This posh school is also an insult to somebody who died. In 1567, a greengrocer passed away, and in his will he asked for the money to be used to build Rugby School, a free school to educate the children of Rugby. The school board all took a leak on his grave and made it into a fee-paying school for students mostly outside the town. A free new school was later set up in his name. Well, that's enough about history. What do you get here? Well, there's plenty of nice architecture and grandeur, but sadly it all feels like it's on the verge of collapse and it's in need of a good wash. You can't even visit the church without getting depressed, and the church is hardly a happy place, but this one is surrounded by boarded up buildings. I also saw rats running around here, although I'm not sure if the camera picked that up. A really grim and horrible place. The town centre itself continues the depressing trend. The shopping mall is pretty bad. It's not quite Evesham levels, but it's getting there. Give it another year or two and there won't be a single tenant left in it. I truly enjoyed how they can't be bothered to try at all here, and you can still find the boards up for Woolworths, which closed down in 2009. So other than Holyhead, that's now the second place we've found a Woolworths board if retail history is your pastime. It's not mine. I think it's a complete joke that they've given up here. This place should be nice. I'm told it's much nicer in the summer when they ship in a giant sand pit and pretend they're at the seaside. They really are trying to emulate Britain's dying seaside towns here. A report from the summer claimed that Rugby officially has one of the worst town centres in the UK, with 1 in 4 shops empty. Here they are trialling a new scheme where the council can forcibly find new tenants for a shop if it's been empty for over a year, regardless of what the landlord thinks. That scheme began in May. Doesn't seem to be going very well. Despite all the destruction and chaos, it's not even cheap to live here, with an average house price of $299,000, or you can rent for $1,100 a month. Rugby was also the home of the first ever jet engine, which was quickly used as an escape mechanism to exit this hellhole. Residents to this day are still dreaming of a cheaper and easier escape. Number 4. Atherstone. Atherstone is a former hat-making town with a population of 9,212. Whilst it is not a mining town, it feels like one, and this sort of place is unfortunately my bread and butter. Well, you have to take your hats off to this place. Despite how rubbish it is here, they still desperately try every day to make a go of it. You'll find a long narrow main street with lots of closed down shops. What you'll also find is a lot of pubs. I'm not quite sure why there's so many pubs here, perhaps it's to deal with the depressing reality of living here. Despite its history as a hat making town, there weren't any hats here, just the one hat that I found on the floor, full of pennies for some reason. Then one of the weirdest Atherstone residents with a guitar followed me around for the rest of my visit. This town is just full of industrial wasteland. It looks like Grimsby mated with Tonopandi to create this monstrosity. But it's actually worse than those places, because here it is home to the closest thing England has to the purge. Once a year every year, the local hooligans let off some steam and aggression by competing in a barbaric game where the residents quite literally take to the streets and they're allowed to beat each other unconscious. The rules to this game are that you may not kill anyone and you may not leave the main street. Whoever is holding a special ball after 2 hours is up is the winner of £10. Every Shrove Tuesday, the shops must board up their windows and the little kids are shut away as chaos and destruction descends on the town. If Keir Starmer was aware of anything outside of London and saw this, he surely would have put all the fun and games to an end. It's just too violent for him. That's not the only violence associated with this town though. In 2013, during a football match, the fans ran across the pitch to fight with Barrow fans. 29 Atherstone fans were arrested, which is madness considering that only about 100 fans turn up to watch their games. It wasn't even a Shrove Tuesday, or maybe the fans just got confused on the date. They were never the brightest here. This made national news and added fuel to the flames of the rough reputation of this place. If you would like to buy a boarded up house where once a year you can quite literally kick the crap out of your neighbour, the average price here is $242,000, or you can rent for $936 a month. Wow, I'm pretty sure that's one of the first times on this channel since I've been doing this that the rental price has been under £1,000. Well, what do you expect? It's the English purge town after all. Fortunately, the purge strategy does actually seem to work here, as the rest of the year the crime rate is pretty low and the average is only 64 and 1,000. Maybe they should adopt this game in other towns. I'll say this for it, there are some nice spots in the town amongst all the chaos and it's very interesting and historic. I liked it, I just don't want to risk my life living here. They have such a blatant disregard for life here that this week vandals were caught throwing life-saving kits into the canal. They are even hesitant to knock down an old hat factory which has been derelict since 1999. Whenever there is a bad storm, parts of the factory dislodge and cascade down into the streets below. But because this is Atherstone, safety is not held in high regard. What a conundrum this place is. You need a hard hat to live here, but there's nowhere to buy one from. Number 3. Keresley End. Well, it certainly feels like the end. Keresley End is a former mining village with a population of 3,631. Now we are talking, it's been far too long since we've been to a mining village. But this place is nothing like the others. Unlike the mining towns and villages of Wales, this place is not romanticised, and for good reason. This must be a modern mining village because all of it looks like it was built around the 30s. It is essentially a massive council estate hanging off the side of a hill. The mine shut its shaft in 1991 and the place became a waste of space and an eyesore. On top of the old mine they placed a huge collection of ugly buildings used as a distribution centre. Someone should distribute this village straight into the toilet bowl. It doesn't help that we're right next to Coventry at this point, but the crime and poverty here is unreal. The village is run by a gang known as the Keresley Massive. Not the Kersal Massive, that was in Manchester. But these guys control the narcotics trade on the estate and also run the protection racket for the chip shop. In 2011, the village was hit by a mysterious apple rain. Thousands of apples fell from the sky, pelting the village and its residents. This mystery was never truly solved, but some blame it on apples falling from a plane passing overhead. My theory is I think God wanted to try and help the residents get some much needed vitamins in their body. But unfortunately, many of the apples were not eaten, as teeth are a luxury in Keresley End. The nearby city of Coventry have been looking to redevelop the area with 3,000 new homes as an eco-suburb. Whatever the hell that is. So this village has been growing, with the constant never-ending building work driving villagers up the wall. The new houses have dragged the house price up in Keresley End, with it costing around $300,000 to live here. They were promised a swimming pool and other amenities, but none of those have materialised so far. Funny how that happens. They could do with sorting out their shopping area. Only one shop remains, with the rest looking like a bomb has hit it. Straight out of the 1980s, this one. It's actually very fitting for the area. If you weren't depressed before, you sure will be now looking at these images. It all just feels a bit hopeless. There's nothing to do here at all except fight people at the wreck. To the north is the M6 motorway and to the south is Coventry, so living here is like being trapped in a miserable prison experience. It's worse for the old people though, they're treated like a complete inconvenience. At the council care home this August, the residents were left without hot water or heating for 2 weeks. How is that even possible, unless you literally aren't trying to help them at all? Then an old man was beaten to a pulp by 2 middle-aged men when he asked them to stop riding their motorbikes in the park next to his granddaughter. Well, that perfectly demonstrates the sort of people who live in Keresley End. Avoid this place at all costs, because if you ignore my advice, it truly could be the end for you. Number 2, Bedworth. To be honest, there isn't a whole lot to choose from between number 1 and number 2. Both towns have an extremely turdy nature, so in the end I've just let the internet decide, and the majority on the internet just about had Bedworth as the number 2. It's a town with a population of 31,090. Bedworth was a town which was almost entirely wiped out by the Black Death, and reportedly they went down to just 14 families at one point. The fleas almost succeeded in bringing down Bedworth, but they fell at the final hop. The town did recover through mining. The highlight of this town is a collection of almshouses from 1840. Yeah, that's right, the biggest highlight is essentially some council houses from before they were called that. I thought this place was a palace as I approached it. Shows how far architecture fell in this country, because everything else here is grey and miserable. You know a town is a fail when the first thing you see after getting off the train is derelict and abandoned buildings. It's too late, you're stuck here now. The town centre without a doubt is one of the gloomiest places I've ever visited. It's not that it's more closed down than other places I've been to, it's just something about the buildings, the atmosphere and the people. It feels like we're stuck in the 80s here. Apparently the centre is a big site for drink related problems. I can see this as the sort of place you wouldn't want to walk alone at night. It doesn't feel like you're anywhere of any importance. It essentially feels like a small shopping centre on a council estate. The sort of place nobody could ever care about. They have been granted some money to fix the place up, but it feels like a major job. £20 million may not be enough. You may as well take that 20 million and throw it out of the window, because it's just a waste of time. I personally believe they should create some sort of horror tourism. People could visit out of morbid curiosity to see what a failed town centre looks like. You could include a free can of Stella for every visitor and bags of bread to throw on the floor for the locals to eat. At least it's cheap here, with an average house price of $231,000 and a monthly rental cost of £981. But you must remember, it's essentially just a continuation of Coventry here, and we all know about the excellent reputation of that place. The main shop in Bedworth is an ugly Tesco store, but locals don't even like that very much. 4 children, one as young as 11, tried to burn it down this year. Imagine having that on your resume before you've even started comprehensive school. You know you're in trouble when the town's main nickname is Bedrough. Appropriate, because it is very rough here. It has the second worst crime in the county of a rate of 78 in 1,000, which seems kind of low considering the reputation of this place. Strangely, it also has a reputation for dog manure. There is apparently an epidemic here of owners refusing to pick up. From now on, the council have pledged to have a turd patrol who will be spraying a paint circle around the lumps on the floor. Well, at least that's going to add some much needed colour to the washed out town of Bedworth. They will also be giving out shopping vouchers to anybody they notice picking up their dog waste. Wow, so residents of Bedworth have to be bribed to do a basic thing that everybody else can manage. Bedworth, a town you wish you could forget. Number 1, Nuneaton. The biggest turd town in Warwickshire is Nuneaton, the market town with a population of 88,813. Nuneaton is affectionately known as Nunny. Well, around here that's known as something else entirely. It is also known as Treacle Town due to the high amount of people who are born here and then get stuck here. Originally the town was called Eton, but the posh people of the real Eton were so horrified that somewhere could share the same name, they forced the change. A nearby nunnery was located and the two names were combined. Half the Nunny residents were employed at ribbon weaving, but with the rise of Temu and ASOS, the industry went into decline. Nuneaton town centre was pretty much flattened during the Blitz and it had to be rebuilt throughout the 60s. Unfortunately the time for the least impressive architecture in England. The place was given a ring road and the disgusting buildings of the asbestos and tiers design were stacked up throughout the town. The issue is that many of them are empty now. I'm not sure what an acceptable life cycle for a building is, but 60 years later it's time to knock it all down again. It truly is a grim and depressing place to hang out. It's funny how Debenham's closing seems to create an impact zone of catastrophe for any shops nearby. Apart from that, the shopping was admittedly fine. Much more compared to Bedworth. But the rest of this town contains so many buildings which are on the verge of collapse. Everything is dirty and grimy, and I felt like if I spat on the floor I'd be doing the town a favour. Nuneaton is the cheapest place to buy a house in the county, with an average price of $256,000, or you can rent for $1,000 a month. Due to its central location, it shouldn't be that hard to find a job around here, but many people choose not to, as demonstrated by the fact that 77% of Warwickshire's most deprived areas are either in Bedworth or Nunny. 32% of children here are living in poverty, compared to Warwick in the south of the county where it's just 19%. Talk about a north-south divide. Nunny has the worst crime in the county at 81 in 1,000, but again, just from a quick glance at the place you would expect it to be a bit higher. Nuneaton hit the national news this month when a live TV interview was interrupted by two teenage mums hurling racist abuse at a man. Probably wasn't the brightest idea. Also this week, 3 charity clothing banks were set ablaze as locals do their best to ensure that nobody else dresses like somebody from Nuneaton. And I try to usually find lighter topics to talk about, but there's also the asylum housing here where 2 men are accused of actions against a 12-year-old. The previously mentioned teenage council leader was here this week and was verbally assaulted and threatened whilst being on a date with his girl. You can disagree with his politics, but he's just a kid. People should pick on somebody their own size. Nuneaton is really not painting a picture of a happy town, more like a crappy town. Nuneaton's biggest claim to fame was that it was the site of the first ever outdoor condom machine, because the dangers of Nuneaton locals reproducing was a real threat to the country. Sadly, the machine was vandalised and had to be removed. It is rumoured that instead the government have considered castration as a solution to Nuneaton. And that's the list. Did we miss anywhere out? Still hoping to hit that magical 100k by Christmas time. Should be there or thereabouts, but if you want to help Turdtown succeed and thrive, don't forget to hit like, share and subscribe to help Turdtown strive.